Hello, Grandmasters. Mike from the WCA. It's nice to see you all again. I hope you had a nice break. I want to show you a little something that happened over the Memorial Day weekend at the Norwalk Chess Club. The youngster with the black pieces is a 2 o'clock student, was playing one of our 4 o'clock Grandmasters, which is a cool thing when that happens because we get to talk to you birds in class about the behind the scenes things that happen at tournaments. You know, how players are learning to deal with clocks, notation, tournament directors. It's really what the WCA is about. It's getting real tournament experience and then sharing it with each other. That's the whole purpose of you guys coming. Black ended up losing this game in time pressure, which is so typical for like game 45. You know, you're doing well, you could even be up a whole piece, and then you get in time pressure and the kid with black just hung mate. It happens, you know, you just miss something. But that's not really where the growth in chess comes from. You learn the most by going back to the positions when you do have time to study and then realizing that you missed something instructive. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit brief here because I want you guys to look at this position at home more on your own. So if you have the time this week, set up a chessboard and put the following position up, the same one you see on the screen, and you're only going to have to move one piece for a few minutes. So here, before I show you what white's move was, let's just compare the teams for a minute, black versus white. And if you did a little bit of calculation, you should see that white is winning by 1 pawn. And it's a dangerous pawn. I'll circle it for you. It's this guy over here. It's only 3 boxes away from becoming a queen. The problem is the rest of white's army is completely disconnected. The king is sort of secure up here. Not great, but sort of secure, protected by these pawns. The black king could have a back rank problem later in the game, but for the most part, maybe you give the edge to black in terms of king safety because really nothing white has can attack him right now. If you look at the 2 white rooks, one is in California, the other is in Connecticut, and it's not clear when they're actually going to work together. The rook on h4 was placed earlier there to put some pressure on h7, but white never had the opportunity to coordinate an attack. I think he was planning to try to swing this bishop around and put some pressure here, but black really didn't give him time. To black's credit, he played extremely well in this game. So clearly the black rooks, which are doubled nicely on the b file, are stronger than the white rooks. I think the black queen is much stronger too, because the white queen doesn't really have any squares. I mean, where is she going? She can come out here to a4. Otherwise, she's got to hang around up on top. The rest of the squares are off limits. I mean, just look how the black rook and this killer knight controls so many squares in white's territory. This is an outpost piece, and if you guys remember the definition of an outpost, it's a piece on your partner's side of the board. So this knight is on white's side. It's protected by your own pawn, and there are no white pawns that can chase it away. To make matters worse for white, this knight is so powerful for another reason. His friend here, the bishop that I'm drawing on here on g4, whoops, I didn't mean to do, well, that's actually the move that was played in the game. Let me take that back. Anyway, the bishop, no matter how hard it tries, could never eliminate this knight. It's on a dark square, which means if you wanted to get rid of this thing, you would have to give up a rook for it. Okay, that's just how strong black's position was. So it turns out, even though black is down a pawn, black is better here in this position. Okay, I want to show you what happened. White had to stop the queen or the rook from grabbing this pawn here on f2. That would have been a really nasty check, right? So what he did was he played the move, not that one, he played the move bishop f3. Okay, so let me take you back. Here's the position, bishop f3. So if you're using a chessboard, this is the one I want you to study from now. Okay, so in the game, black took his rook and moved it to b3. And his idea was to come in, put some pressure over here, eventually double rooks. And I'm really not sure why he came in the way he did. If he wanted to double rooks, he probably could have just put his rook on a2 immediately. Maybe he wanted to stop the queen from getting out first. But anyway, he missed something. So stop the video if you need to and see if you can figure out what black missed here. Okay, Rusa is constantly telling you to look at every forcing move. And if you're not sure what a forcing move is, just think about it. It's basically any check, capture, attack that pretty much makes your partner do something. That's why they use the word forcing. You kind of force them into something, especially a check, right? You should look at every check, because when you check me, I can't do what I want. I have to get out of check. And it turns out here that black had exactly that move here. I give you full credit if any of you found the move here. Rook takes f2 check. It's an absolute killer. It's such a beautiful move. It looks bad on the surface because now black is officially down a whole rook, and white better take that rook, because if not, this bishop is going to fall probably with check, or if not with check, it's going to fall with other attacking moves coming. So let's assume that white is going to grab that rook. So when they do, you have to find the follow-up, and that shows you the power of having doubled rooks. Because you had a battery here, you can now use the second rook to check, and that check makes white's life really difficult. I would like you, if you have the time, to spend your own time working these moves out, because white has a bunch of ways to get out of the check. I'm just going to show you a couple, but again, I'm just trying to emphasize how important it is to look at every check and capture. I mean, how cool would this be to play in a real tournament game? Just sack a whole rook and then follow up with a check, and then basically tell white, okay, how you getting out? Let me show you a couple of lines, and then you guys, we can talk about the rest of this in class, okay? So let's look at, say, king g1 first. King g1 is going to get answered with knight takes check. And once you take with check, the problem is the rook could fall on the next move, so you would get the rook back and then shatter white's position. But it gets worse here, really, because if you don't want to walk on this line, and that seems like a natural thing, like you don't want to lose the rook with a discovered check, so what's the most natural thing to do? And that's put the king in the corner, right? Okay, you put the king in the corner, and then comes another shocking move. All right, pause your video. How about queen takes h4? Did anybody see that? Oh man, gorgeous move. If the pawn takes your queen, that's checkmate. How nice is that? So, you know, king h1 is not going to help, because they're just going to take, and if you play queen takes knight, then we play queen takes pawn mate. So trust me, that line is not going to work out so good for you. So let's go back. Here's where the second rook is checked. So king g1's not a great square. How about king f1? Well, that can't be good, right? Because now when you take the bishop, the problem for white is there's a discovered check that's in the air. Not a whole lot you can do. You can try a blocking move like rook f4, but you know, moves like knight h2 check, the king will move, and then we just take the rook. And at this point, black is up a piece, and the king is completely open. So this is definitely not going to work out too well. All right, so let me take you back, and let's take a look at the move king, let's say e1. All right, so this one is even easier, because when you take the bishop with check, assuming they don't want to give up their queen, right? You see how the queen could take, although it might be best. If king f1, then you have a really nice attack. Knight h2 is double check, king g1, and then you have a mate by force. Can you find it? Queen f2, king h1, and then checkmate. Okay, so here's what I'd like you to do. Reset the board, take it to this position, and try to figure out what black missed, and we'll see you in class. All right, take care.